guys, welcome back to Of Stone and Clay. This is episode 99. I couldn't explain to you how close we are to episode 100. It's incredibly close. Today's guest is an actor. He's been in, I think, 17 films.
Is that? Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, that's what I figured out on my own. He's gotten into directing, huge advocate of mental health. He's actually been up here speaking at a Gather conference. Corbin Allred.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, man.
Hey, Taylor.
I'm really excited. We linked up some months back just on Instagram, got chatting, and kind of discovered that we see a lot of things the same way, and I'm just excited to talk, man.
So am I. I'm happy to finally meet you. I mean, I've been watching you.
Yeah.
And I feel like I know you, but that conversation on the phone, I was like, this is a guy. We got into it quick.
We did.
And it was awesome. It was awesome. So I've been looking forward to this. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes, I'll hop on calls with people a lot of times to kind of see, like, would we be a good fit? Would it be fun to talk on a podcast? Would it be useful? And yeah, we just got into it, and I was like, somebody should be recording this.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Well, sweet, man. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your journey and creativity and acting, and I know you've talked a lot about what got you into acting and everything. I wanted to ask kind of what was, of all your projects, you've been in Saints and Soldiers, you've been in the Saratov Approach, you had a lot of early success when you were really young in TV shows and Robin Hood Men in Tights. Do you have a film that was maybe not like the most fun or most exciting, but the film that just means the most to you to this day, that resonates with you? And when you think about your filmography, you're like, that's the film that means the most to me.
Yeah, I do. And you named two of the films that to this day and probably always will be just highlights for my career and just, the storytelling that I want to be a part of. Were those two films, Saints and Soldiers and the Saratov Approach. Saints and Soldiers specifically was a film, World War II film. If you haven't seen it, go see it.
Yeah.
We just had a 20th anniversary screening,
wow.
Which is wild. It dates me, but I hadn't seen it in about 15 years, and we just screened it and had a bunch of the cast come out. It was interesting. I even seeing some of the cast. It was the first time all of the cast had been together since really the premiere. And I was so moved. I saw Peter Holden, one of the other actors who plays the sergeant in it, and I couldn't hold back tears just to see him, because we'd really been, in the proverbial trenches, on set. And so we screened this film, and I hadn't seen it in 15 years. And I was there with two of my kids, my wife, and friends and fans and other cast, the director, writer, producer. And I thought, I'm just going to watch this and try to remove myself from it and detach from it. And it's been long enough. Hopefully I can watch it and, I'd not look up at the screen and see me, but actually look up and see this character. And it's a film I'm so proud of. First because of the type of story it is. It's a World War II story. It's a story about humanity, and it's a story about what is good and the greater good. And so I was proud of it, but it was amazing to see it hold up. You're kind of like, okay, it's 20 years later. Is the audience going to respond the way they did when it first came out? Because it was a very successful film with these kind of religious undertones, but nothing really overt, right? And so it spoke to really everyone, and to watch it and to see the audience laugh and cry the way they did and gasp and be so moved by it. I thought, we made this in the snow of Alpine, Utah 20 years ago for no money, and we, the wardrobe I'd put on every morning was still damp from the day before, and it was freezing cold, and yet how could we complain? Because the whole time we're sitting there thinking, we're just playing these guys. There were real people. There were real people that did this, and they didn't get to warm up or dry off or sleep in a warm bed, and they didn't come home, And that's, so I think for me that film will always just have a special place in my heart. And it was an honor to play that character.
Yeah. I actually rewatched it a few days ago. I wanted to kind of get in that mode.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, I felt like that film, maybe more so than some of your others, so much of it was just facial acting, right? Like you definitely had, your dialogue moments, but I felt like for the most part, the moving parts, the parts that made you stand out as a character were just your facial reactions.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way?
I do. I mean, he's Deacon. Deacon Greer was the character's name, and he was a quiet character. He was an introverted character, very good at what he did, which unfortunately was hurting people,
right.
And hurting people that he loved. But yeah, there was a lot of, and Ryan Little, who's the director of the film, he was also the director of photography, and so he was in the trenches with us, with the camera right in our face, and there was a lot with that character that it couldn't be spoken, and so I had to kind of wear it on my face, and which I think again kind of speaks to why that means so much to me, because I had to go to these places and try to really relate to the character to be able to have it come out on the screen and have the audience be able to feel what I was feeling, and I had to go there and actually feel it in order for that to happen.
Because it's got to be hard when you're not relying a ton on dialogue to not like overact.
Yeah, sure.
When you're just thinking like, okay, I got to like look scared or look frightened or like I got to tear up. Like it's got to be hard. I've done zero acting, but it's got to be hard to like not be over dramatized.
Yeah. Telling yourself, oh, I have to tell a story with my face right now.
Yeah, you have to look authentic.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, subtlety in film, I think that's one of the big, I know some of my favorite actors are the most subtle actors, the ones that, when I watch and I forget that they're acting and they look like everyday people doing everyday things. And that's something that takes some time and practice and I'm still working on getting better at.
Right.
But yeah, there was definitely a lot of that, and there was a lot of turmoil. That character came from was going through a lot.
Yeah. There's a lot of PTSD.
Yeah.
And he was kind of shell shocked.
Right.
And do you have? I'm sure you're just such a big like film guy. Do you have a few films that are like these are my holy trinity of movies? We
were just talking about this. Yes. So, I mean, if we want to, it's almost like asking somebody like, hey, what's your favorite song? It's impossible.
Yeah.
Because you're like, which genre? Like by what,
just like all time.
Yes.
You're like, these are films that when I find out someone hasn't seen it, we're going to watch it together.
Aliens.
Okay.
Aliens, which is number, well, technically it's Prometheus, and then you have Covenant, and then you have Alien, and then you have Romulus, and then Aliens. So Aliens, which was the second film to actually come out, but it's not, if you understand that. That film to me, it just turned me into a movie lover. I was saying, I watched that movie way too young. I was way too young to watch a movie like that. Yeah. Sorry, Mom and Dad, for outing you, for letting me watch this. But I just remember watching it, and I remember feeling so terrified and so fascinated and excited, and I have this, Sigourney Weaver plays Ellen Ripley, who's kind of this heroine character, action star, and it did everything. It made me feel everything, and I remember thinking, gosh, you can do this. You can make people feel things and manipulate people's emotions and feelings to get them thinking about themselves. And Aliens is kind of a funny example. Right. I'm probably not giving you this like real profound, but Aliens, and it really did set me off on what stories can do and what they can mean, and they can come from your imagination.
Yeah.
And if they don't come out of your imagination, they die with you. And you think that at one point that was in a filmmaker's head, or whoever your favorite director is, it was in their head. And thank goodness they put it out there, because it's really like, it's just made me love movies. So that's really, and it's funny because after Aliens, I used to, I'd dress up and play Army with my friends, and, we'd play guns and run out in the woods and stuff like that, and be like, who are you? And I'd be like, I'm Ripley.
Yeah.
And I get like made fun of. They're like, that's a girl. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it is. I'm like, yeah, well, this girl would kill any of you. Like, who are you? Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah.
You don't stand a chance. Sylvester Stallone, no way. Sigourney Weaver is, I am Team Ripley all the way. And to this day, and always will be. So
Yeah.
that would be the top of my movie list. Aliens.
Do you have a couple of favorite actors of all time? I know you've obviously worked with a lot of people.
Yes, definitely. Favorite actors, I would say Emily Blunt is one of my very very favorite actors. I love Gary Oldman. Jeff Bridges is one of my very favorites. I would say those are three of my very very top actors for sure.
Yeah. What do you think makes someone, like, I'm sure there's so many intangibles, but what do you think it is about somebody that makes them, or at least gives them the ability to be a great actor? Is it pathos? Is it empathy? Is it just an ability to feel? Is it an ability to inhabit someone's being and their brain? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of all those things. For me, I think there's something about accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about being closed off enough to create a sense of mystery, but open enough also for me to find relatability and accessibility. And depths inside of characters is like really what I'm fascinated with. Daniel Day-Lewis would be another like top of my list actor, right? Like you watch him and you're just captivated in every character he plays, and there's so much nuance to character, and
with him you feel depth of character.
It's depth,
even if you're like, obviously a 2-hour film doesn't have time to get into everything. You're like, I know his characters
totally
got stuff.
And it's because, I mean, honestly, I look at actors like that, and I think it's because I think you can tell, especially as an actor, it's hard as an actor. I think there's people who don't, because I watch movies in different ways than like even my wife or somebody else might watch a movie. I'm dissecting a lot, of things, even the filmmaking and the angle and the lighting, and I'm looking at all those
especially
things.
As you've gotten into directing.
Yes,
I'm sure.
totally. Yes, very much so. And so I'm a nerd for the art of it and the art of storytelling. But I think there's, as you watch that and you watch these characters and the depth, is you can tell, from me, I can tell the actors that do the work. And I look at them, and the reason that I like these actors is not necessarily because I'm thinking, oh, they're from my favorite movie or this character that they played, but they're actors that I like look up to. These are actors that I'm like, I want to do the work like that actor does the work. Like I can tell they did the work. They've created a backstory to their character that is not in the script. It doesn't exist anywhere in the world, but you know it's there because you see it in their eyes. You see where they're coming from with their language, the way that their mastery of the screenplay, and they come in and they say the language you can tell is language. They're speaking thoughts. They're not speaking lines that a writer wrote and handed to them and said, hey, say this. And you all know the difference. We all know the difference. Right. You watch actors like that and tell me, those actors, even just those, I mean, I could list a ton of actors that I look up to and love and aspire to be like. And you watch them, and never will you feel that the words that they are saying are lines.
Right.
You're just like, this is real.
Yeah.
This is real, and they're making it feel real, and I love that.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like with people like your friends or family, people you come in contact, do you ever kind of think like, dude, this person, if they had the right training, they could be a good actor?
Totally.
You kind of can feel that in people?
Yes,
just
totally.
Their, I don't know, their depth or their ability to...
You're one of those people.
You think?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What is it about?
I think there's depth to you.
Yeah.
I mean, and I look at you, you're like a tall guy, like you're kind of a captivating looking person, and you're interesting. And so I look, and I'm like, oh man, put this guy in a movie, and like you write a really, really smart, profound romantic comedy.
Yeah.
And you cast Taylor as the lead, right? Or the underdog, right? You're the whatever it is. But I think part of it, to me, I think I look at people and I say, you know, you would be, and a lot of, I think, acting also comes from deep life experience that you get to bring to each of your characters. And so I feel I'm in my mid 40s now, and I started acting when I was 12. I mean, if I watch work when I was 12 years old and 13 years old, I didn't have it. I couldn't give it because I didn't have it.
Yeah.
And now at 45, married with children, seen my fair share of tragedy and trauma, and I have a lot more to give to every single character. And there are universal things that, the experience, the story is different, but the emotions are the same.
Yeah.
Very similar. We've all felt what we've all felt.
Yeah.
In just from different places. And so I think the people that I look at and say, oh, there's a story in there, like you, because you have a story in there.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen your podcast, and I'm watching you, and the things you're saying are like, there's deep, profound thought that goes into the things that you're saying. And that's not something you're like, you know, conjuring up right here at this microphone. This is stuff you've thought of as you've laid in bed awake with your eyes open, staring at the ceiling fan, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think people like that really, I want to know. And I'm like, man, if you could just, can you play you, you know, and like put, you know, put you in a movie and you just play you, people would watch it.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure that's what a lot of directors do with really low budget films, right?
Sure.
When they don't have the money to go get big names, they're like, well, this person, we're going to take a chance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And there's so many talented actors. Yeah. I see them, you know, I work with a lot of youth actors down in St. George where I live. I'm part of a performing arts company. I'm one of on the board there called Encore Performing Arts. And I love this. It's a nonprofit. I love these kids, but you know, these kids, you may never know their name, but man, some of them just bring such depth and such experience.
It's crazy when a kid can bring, like I saw this YouTube video the other day. They were showing the audition tape of the kid
in E.T.
Yes.
I know it.
And he
had the part right there. He had the part before he even left the room.
He blew it out of the water. He starts like crying, and then they were like, "Kid, you got the job."
Yeah.
And I'm like, how does this 8-year-old summon that pain? You know, and
it's that. And I will say, I think artists, and I've said this before. There's this kind of sense of artists. We a little bit have kind of these tortured souls where we tend to feel things really, really hard and really heavy. You know, the kid that played in E.T., Elliot in E.T., right?
Yeah.
He's pulling that from somewhere.
Right.
It's like there's something that he's.
Yeah, I could even see like my niece is 8 years old, and she is like a deep feeler, you know? And yeah, there's moments where you can just see she is so deeply moved by something.
Yes.
When most 8-year-olds are just like, whatever, I want to go play now. And yeah, I don't know what it is.
I can give an example. This just literally happened 2 nights ago, and it'll probably make me cry, but I was whispering to my 2 daughters. They were getting ready to go to bed. And each night before bed, I whisper something in their ears, and they demand that I whisper.
How old are they?
12 and 8.
Okay, yeah.
And they demand I do it in the accent of Ebenezer Scrooge.
That's a really fair request.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Because I play Ebenezer Scrooge in A Christmas Carol in a theater down in St. George every Christmas, or the last few, and I'm doing it again this year.
Make sure you're sharp with your
Yeah, they're trying to. I think they just like Scrooge more than they wish that Scrooge was their dad.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm whispering in their ear, and I say these things in this accent, and as I'm sitting up to after talking to my daughter, my youngest, who's very artistic and deep feeler. I mean, to the point where we're like, Evie, if I could tap into your brain, what is going on in there? Right. She's just the sweetest, most delightful little thing. All my kids are. But Evie, just as this example, I stand up and I hit the back of my head. And I'm like, oh, and it's one of those ones where I'm rubbing, I'm like, oh. And she says, did you hit your head? And I said, yeah, I did. And then she says, did it hurt? And I'm like, yeah, it really hurt. And I go to whisper to my other daughter, and I feel Evie's little arms. She climbed out of bed and gives me this big hug. And I'm like, oh, and she just is squeezing me so hard. And I hugged her back, and I'm like, I'm okay. She didn't say anything. She's climbed in bed, but like, what what did she feel? Like, what was her processing from, I watched you get hurt.
I need to go comfort.
I found out that it did hurt you and that I have to do something to make this better.
Yeah.
And she got out of bed and gave me this hug. And I was like, whatever that thing is, I mean, I'm not going to say every kid, you know, I'm sure all kids feel that and they have empathy and compassion, but whatever motivated her to take action, I think that's, you know, I see that, I think, in a lot of people that feel things really, really, really deeply.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the beauty in that is, I think some people that feel really deeply, they get insecure because they cry more easily. They're more sensitive, especially as a kid. It's tough to be a really sensitive kid. And I was a really sensitive kid.
Same.
Like I was deeply afraid of thunder and lightning, like until way too old.
Hey, that's our,
I was afraid of dogs. I was like, and yeah, something would happen. I'd get in trouble at school. My parents would be upset. Tears.
Yes.
You know, and I didn't understand like that this was maybe actually a good thing to feel so much, and that it was kind of kinetic energy, right? And that when I got older, that means I could love more.
Totally.
I could love deeper, and I could care about things more.
Do you find that there's times where you're out in public and you'll see someone and you'll see their eyes and something about them will move you to such deep love? That's this stranger that you're like, what is it about their situation that you like that's making you feel love for them? There's nothing, they didn't even see you.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I saw this homeless person the other day and I couldn't believe how moved I was, because I'm not usually like, I don't know what it was, but actually I do know what it was. He looked so much like my dad. It was insane. Like his body type, his hair, his skin complexion. And it like put me in an alternate universe where I was like, what if my dad had gone down some dark path and ended up on the street? Like, seeing him, I would still love him just as much as I do now. Yeah. And to think that there are people out there that probably love this guy as much as I love my dad. Yeah. Right? But most people just see him as some degenerate beggar on the street.
Or don't see him at all.
Yeah,
right?
Don't see him at all.
Yeah.
Or just see him for his inability to hold a job, his inability to deal with his addictions, whatever it was. Yeah. And I saw just somebody that reminded me of my dad. And I just, you know, my connection with my dad is so deep that it just hit me in a visceral way. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there's some power and some weird mystic thing about people's eyes, you know? But yeah, I don't know. Have you felt that experience?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel it often. I mean, I try to pay attention and I try to think of why. And sometimes, you know, I've looked, you know, I've, you know, seen people and, you know, an impression had come to me and I'm like, man, they need it. Like, they're sad, you know, and I don't know, I don't have any evidence for that. It's just like something about it. I feel like, there's something sad about them. And sometimes I'm like, man, I'm going to just be a weirdo when I go up to it. Like if I say, like, what do I say? And I have, and there've been times where I haven't and I regretted it. So now I try to make a point to just like, you know, to just say something and something kind or, but I do. And I remember a time I asked my son, we were driving and this was when we were living in Portland, Oregon. And I was in the car and I saw a man and he was crossing the street and this man clearly had some disability. Like it was like kind of didn't have a normal gait and couldn't really walk. And I didn't know, you know, if he'd had a brain injury or spinal cord injury or an illness or something like that. And I'm, you know, very sensitive. I have a beautiful, perfect little 12-year-old girl that has spina bifida and she's paralyzed from the chest down. And it's all she's ever known. So I'm very, very sensitive to people's, you know, the variation in people's bodies and this, we all show up gift wrapped a little differently and I even hesitate to use the word disability because it's just, you know, there's ability and, you know, you can do some things some ways and some people have to do them a different way. It doesn't mean they can't. It just means they have to do it a little different. But I looked back and kind of rear view, and I like saw my son, and he was young at the time, and I saw him, he was just looking at this guy, and I could see he just kind of had some tears in his eyes. And I was like, what's going on? And I said, Wyatt, I said, you see that man? And he said, yeah, I see him. I said, would you ever make fun of him? And my son just started bawling. And he's like, no, Dad. He's like, I could never. And I was like, why? He's like, I love him. And this is a stranger, And I was like, man, can we just take that and give it to the whole world, as it relates to the whole world, to where everyone's your dad, to where everyone is, if we could see ourselves or someone we love in everyone, and they don't have to necessarily be somebody that reminds us of someone, but everyone reminds us of everyone.
Yeah.
And man, that would be awesome. But I know that's wishful thinking, but it's all right to take a stab at it, I guess.
But what a cool moment with you and your son to ask him a question like that.
Yeah.
Because I think as a parent, I mean, listen, I have 0 kids, but I think as a parent,
I'm glad you said 0.
Yeah. It's very clear.
Yeah.
There's not a single kid
Thanks,
out
man.
there. But I think as a parent, you have to be really hyper vigilant about these moments, these teachable moments.
Yeah.
Because you're just going about your day. You're taking your kids to practice. You're taking them to school. There's so many things that you're just like getting done, and you're just living a normal life. But these kids are such sponges, And as a parent, I think you have to be hyper vigilant to be like, this actually might be a moment.
Yeah, point them
right.
Yeah.
And we're like in traffic, and I'm stressed, and mom's dealing with this, but this might be a moment.
Yeah.
Does that cross your mind a lot?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, especially now. I mean, having kids and especially working with a lot of kids, it's like every moment feels like a moment. Like there's so much going on, and I think we were talking about this earlier. Is I think we are so often the answer to other people's pain, and acknowledging that like these are feelings that I think we have as inherently good and decent creatures. Like it's crazy. We're on this planet. We're sharing. All these consciences are kind of floating around, walking around, meeting each other's eyes sometimes, and it's just crazy to know that, and then trying to teach and instill into my kids and the kids that I work with and come into contact with that they have moments all the time to maybe be the light in someone's life and do something to make them feel just a little bit better. I definitely see it a lot.
One of the main reasons I felt like you were somebody I really wanted to talk to and get to know better was I saw how online you talked about your wife.
Oh man.
And so I just wanted to ask, how did you guys meet? Tell me how that love germinated.
I'm not joking. I can hardly talk about her because I love her so much. I'll tell you the story and I'll try to like hold it together, but I'm on the edge of crying kind of anytime I speak about her. She's pretty special. So our stories, it's kind of funny. She, blind date, pretty handsome guy.
Sure.
Really intelligent.
Yeah.
And, funny.
Yeah, obviously.
Pretty fit.
Yeah.
And,
well, dude, when did you get jacked?
Oh, I'm not talking about me. She got set up on a blind date with one of my best friends.
Okay. I thought you were doing a weird monologue.
No.
Okay.
That's what's funny about it is she got set up with one of my best friends.
Okay. Yeah.
And this was in LA. I was living in LA working in film. And one of my best friends there got set up on a blind date with my wife. The next day she came to our church where I met her. I was actually dating another girl at the time, but I met my wife. I remember seeing her, and it was immediately like, whoa, hello.
What's that?
Yeah, I'm like, dang.
Yeah.
look, and then, not, but
respectfully
look away. But that night we hung, and all of us in LA were like transplants. Everybody was from out of town. So it was young professionals in and out of the film industry. And we were all kind of, nobody had family there. And so we really kind of created a little family, and, there were 8 or 10 of us, and we just kind of did everything together. I mean, all the time. And that night, she had actually moved she was from a small town, Panguitch, Utah, which if you've never been is heaven on earth.
Oh, I've played basketball there.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, I went to a small town. I went to South Severe High School.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been to Panguitch more times than I could count.
When did you graduate?
2005.
Okay, so you would have, but yeah. So
Come on, look how young I am.
you are young. You are young. You are young. Way younger than me. But yeah, she's from Panguitch, but she moved to LA. She'd taken a job. She was working in sleep medicine. But I meet her at church. That night we hang out at my house. We get into this deep conversation. I don't know how it landed. I mean, I'm probably intentionally trying to like talk with her, sure. But also trying to respect that I'm dating someone. Yeah. But I'm like, okay, this is an interesting person. I'll have a conversation. And I just remember being so captivated by her intelligence, and just, she had really strong opinions about things, everything. I mean, sociopolitically, everything. She was very strong, really a feminist, liberal woman, just like everything. Right. And this was like just really interesting to me and captivating to me. And, and she's beautiful, and she's talking to me, and, we're having conversations, and she's just like mopping the floor with my ideas. I mean, she's just like dismembering me completely intellectually and just everything.
Dang, I thought I was smart.
I know. I was like, dang, I need to like be smarter. And also she just was like respectfully, just really, denying and correcting kind of my thinking, and just putting out ideas that just like, if you ever could, very gracefully, she's like nothing if not truly. And I just remember thinking this was not something I was used to. I was used to, sometimes we get in relationships, and we seek out kind of that, like that affirmation of our ideas all the time, and like someone to just be like, to nod their head and say yes, and you're right, and I agree, and not taking anything away from people that I had dated before, but this was just something new. I just was she's a couple years older than me, and just very well spoken, well put together, and just highly, highly, highly intelligent, and funny, and witty, and but also an introvert, which is weird. If you ask my wife, she'd be like, nope, I don't want to, like, I'm going to close up. But like, you get to know her, crack the shell just a little bit, and you will be captivated. So anyway, we're hanging out. I'm dating, she's dating. She dates my friend casually kind of for a while. She dates another person. I'm dating another person. We're kind of like, we're in the same group, but it was like, and the tension was there, and the flirtation was there, but like couldn't do anything about it kind of thing. And then one day we'd both kind of recently gotten out of relationships, and we'd hung out, went and saw some music, and that night, and she's like, hey, Corbin, like you just, are you just out of a relationship? And I'm, yeah. And she's like, me too. She's like, aren't we supposed to shouldn't we rebound? And I was like, what? I was like, that was awfully bold, but yes.
Yeah. Correct.
And that was kind of the beginning of kind of our romance. And the romance had really lasted for a year and a half before we ever actually got to date. And then we dated for another probably year. And I just fell in love with this woman and this person, this human being, and she was just everything, and she's been everything ever since. And so now fast forward, we're almost 20 years married, and I do post a lot about her. I would post more if, like, sometimes I'm like, I would post too much. People are going to be sick of this, but I want people to know it's real, and I want people to know it's okay. And man, if I have anything to boast about, and not that it's boasting, but like anything that I'm proud of is that a guy like me could end up with a girl like her.
Yeah. Tell me how, dealing with the health issues that your daughters had. Tell me how that has kind of fortified your relationship with your wife, because I feel like it has an option to either make it unbelievably better or to destroy you.
Yeah.
When you have a child that's sick or a child death or, something horrible like that, like walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, I think, and that's a great question. I want to say, first that my kids are all just perfect, right? And we, my son Wyatt, he's 17, he's awesome. I mean, my Skylar's 15. These kids are just such amazing little humans. And we were pregnant with Lily, and we found out, we were about 20 weeks in, and we found out she was going to have some significant medical problems, not to the point where we weren't even sure she would survive to be delivered. And I remember in that moment, like we went to that ultrasound and we could tell something was wrong. Like we could see that the ultrasound tech was like trying to get a picture of something and like wasn't really forthcoming about telling us what. And I knew enough just to be dangerous, to be like, something's wrong. And then, the OB kind of said, hey guys, like looks like there's something wrong. And I remember in that moment, I thought I feel like every bit of peace and happiness left me. And I was like, I might never feel happiness again. Like that's what I thought. I thought my last moment of ever feeling peace or happiness, I've already had. Yeah. Because I was so scared for Ken's. I just agonized over what Ken's was feeling, what my wife was feeling. And then the fact that we've got this little girl that we're in the same moment we're celebrating, because we found out it was going to be a girl. Same day we found out she was going to not have a body that was like, this world isn't super conducive to bodies that don't work completely, and of course we didn't know if she was going to make it. And that was hard. And so we went through this, and we were kind of counseled very early on that this could be, they come in really pretty quick with couples, and they start to counsel you and say, hey, this can be catastrophic to relationships. And we just, Ken's and I kind of going in there, we had just been we're just so solid, and we always have been. Like we when we got married, it really was like both of us kind of like in a metaphorical way just kind of like took each other's tickets, and we're like, hey, do you want to punch these tickets and jump on this train and like do this whole freaking thing together? And both of us just jumped on this train.
You're both all in.
We are all in, and we're going to do the whole thing together. Like there is not, I'm like, and I've reassured, every day I'm like, I'm the surest thing in your whole life is me. And she affirms that to me as well. And so when it happened, we knew we were going to be okay. And this goes to the question, like, you hear, my entire life I'd kind of lived by this, like everything happens for a reason. We hear that phrase all the time. And this shattered that idea.
Like, what's the reason for
there
this?
is no reason. There isn't. And I realized that that's not, the reasons don't really exist before the thing happens, because you can take any good thing or any bad thing, and you can find purpose and meaning in either, and you can devastate your life or you can make it beautiful. And the reason comes later. And we just were like, there is no reason for this. This is what living as a human is like. The stuff that has to go right for any human being to develop in utero and actually be born, like everything's working.
It's a miracle.
Like it's amazing. It's a miracle. And so this one little thing didn't work right. And we got this perfect in every way, gift wrapped just a little bit differently little girl. And we just decided we were going to make the reason. And we did, and it's been a thing that's pulled us together. It's given us, few things can give you insight into, and to strengthen your empathy and your compassion than watching someone kind of try to navigate life when it's a little bit harder. And so my kids got to look at, they get to see this, and then suddenly the world opens up and becomes where everyone, differences in any way, everything is normal. Everything is normal. And it's a beautiful thing to feel like everyone and everything is normal. And so it just really pulled us together. And I've seen other couples just fall apart. And for us, it's been, now I will say it took a lot of our life and made things that we would have loved to not be so serious. We've had some really serious things. Like my wife's gone through some really hard things. My daughter's, my wife had to do CPR on her like 7 times.
Oh, wow.
When she was really young, we almost lost her. We could joke now, we're like, Lily, like, why were you so like freaking towing the line of like life and death? Like, just commit and stick around. Like, why you got to put us through this? Right. But my wife just navigated it like just a rock star. And, but it catches, it's traumatic, and it catches up with you. And we're working through that mental health, dynamic mental health thing, every day, and just trying to be what each other needs each day. So.
Do you feel like part of it is your love increases when you see somebody that you love do really amazing, esteemable things? Like, I feel like, you're seeing your wife care for your daughter, you're seeing your wife give her CPR, whatever, and you're like, whatever love I had that was already enormous, it's just...
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's expanding endlessly like the universe.
There's no limit to it.
Yeah.
There's no limit to it. And just when I think I can't love her enough, I love her more. I see something different, or I see her from a different angle or a different perspective, or I acknowledge her. Just being a human being, man, and watching her, sometimes, I'll talk with her. I'm like, hey, babe, I want you to know, like, I don't love you as just my wife. I don't love you as just the mother of my children. Yeah. I love you just as a human being. Yeah. Like, you are
everything about you. All the bits.
Every single bit. And I say this, without reservation, like, I don't have literally a particle of me left for anyone else.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think you nailed it. Why some people, it tears them apart, because I don't think they have this base that you guys had.
For sure.
Right? And it sounds like you guys already knew very well how to communicate. You already knew very well how to express love. You already knew very well how to navigate difficult times together. And so this catastrophe didn't implode your world.
Yeah, no, it didn't. In fact, and it's been something that's been the most, just like our other kids, it's been the most beautiful thing. And it's been something that just, every test, that just makes you grow closer. And I will say that we did have a foundation, and it's not because we both were like, we were just like naturally good at this. Is both of us had other relationships that we navigated, and before we got together, and we learned, but our foundation of friendship and genuine, just like deep care for each other, has really been a thing that's carried us through. And I think communication, there's a million things that you could say with regard to relationships. I think one of the things that we've worked really hard on our entire marriage is really becoming attentive to distance, and becoming really, really dialed into when you sense that there's distance. And you pay attention, and when you feel distance, we've tried really hard to just, whatever that thing is, to just pull it down. If it's a wall, if it's like, if we're in our heads, if it's like, and we're very, try to reassure each other. I'll tell her, I'm like, babe, I'm having a moment. I'm gonna have a day. Like, I'm in a mood. I'll just be like, babe, listen, I want you to know one thing before I'm in a mood all day, that you're the oak tree in my hurricane. You're not the hurricane.
Right.
I'm barely hanging on, but you're the thing I'm hanging on to. Right. You're not the thing. So if you're looking at me and seeing that I'm like in turmoil, I don't want you to have the insecurity of thinking it has anything to do with you.
Right.
Like, you're grounding me. And, we just try to have, we get bad days. We just try not to have them on the same day.
Yeah, totally. I have this quote I want to read to you, and I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're a Jordan Peterson fan.
I like Jordan Peterson.
But I'm a big fan. But this is kind of related to just what we're talking about mental health and taking care of yourself and taking care of people around you. He says, there is in fact little difference between how you should treat yourself once you realize that you are a community that extends across time, and how you should treat other people.
Oh, wow. Read that
one more time.
Yeah, please.
There is, in fact, little difference between how you should treat yourself once you realize that you are a community that extends across time and how you should treat other people.
Once you understand that you are a community that extends across time, me, myself, is a community.
Yeah.
And how you should treat other people. Wow. I think the thing that comes to mind, I can say that my mind isn't always like my friend, and neither's yours.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about this. I talked a little bit about this earlier, but I think if I could see myself the way the people that love me very most see me, I would never think little of myself again.
No.
And when I had an experience not long ago where I had an experience with my young self. It was a spiritual experience, and I saw myself as a child, and I was able to separate myself from that child, and I'm two separate things. And I remember seeing myself, and I could not hug myself harder and reassure myself that I was going to be someone, and I was okay. Everything was going to be okay. All the things that were making me sad were going to be all right. And I think if I could listen to that quote and I could say, oh, I am a community, not only myself, in and of myself, over time, for eternity, but I'm also every person I've ever been in touch with, or, ever been is in contact with me, or influenced by me in any way. I'd be the kindest to myself, and I have desire to give to other people and to make them feel loved and feel worthy of that love. But if I can look in the mirror and give myself that's a much harder sell.
Yeah.
And
why do you think that is?
I think a lot of it comes down to, I think there's a fair amount there's people that benefit from us hating ourselves. And there's, I think, systems that benefit from us feeling like we're not enough. I think there's money to be made and power to be gained in people not recognizing their potential.
Yeah.
I asked a bunch of kids today at this conference, I said, what's the nicest thing anybody's ever said to you? And all of them were thinking. A few raised their hands and they said these things. Hey, I said this, or somebody said this to me, and it was like the nicest thing anybody's ever said. And somebody told me that I was like a German model, and that was the nicest thing anybody ever said. And I asked everybody, and they were all like, yeah, I got the thing that somebody's ever said to me, nicest thing that anybody's ever said to me. And I said, okay, so you've thought of that, the nicest thing anybody's ever said to you. Now think about who said it. Like, you have them in your head? They're like, yeah. And I said, how many of you had the nicest thing said to you how many of you had the nicest thing ever said to you said by you?
Yeah.
And none of them.
Right.
Me neither.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, in answer to your question, I guess it's a long answer to your short question of why that is I don't know. I think we're terrified by our own greatness. I think there's part of us that if we were allowed to really see ourselves the way we are, I think we're terrified about what our capacity and potential could be, and that maybe we're afraid of not reaching it.
Yeah.
And so if we can keep ourselves down enough, then we can keep our expectations low enough that maybe that they'll be obtainable. But I think if we could ever get to a point when see ourselves where we've already achieved the maximum, like we already are, we always were, and we already are, I think then everything becomes about just helping others, and blessing the lives of others, and reducing unnecessary suffering, you know.
Right.
I don't know. That's a profound thought, man.
Yeah, I think.
What do you think? Yeah.
I think for me, like sometimes when people are like telling me why they love me or they're telling me great things, I'm trying to take the compliment and believe them because they're people I love and trust. But part of me, the little wizard in my brain, is saying, yeah, but you don't know how lazy I can be. You don't know how neglectful I've been about this and this and this. You don't know these bad thoughts I've had. Like, you see this external goodness, but you don't know the badness in me, right? You don't know, like, you don't understand the reasons why I feel unlovable at times, right? You just see me outwardly, and you don't see me inwardly, like I see me. And I recognize that's darkness speaking, but I think that's sometimes why it's so hard to even believe the people that tell you these things.
I totally hear that, but I want to ask you, think about the person that you love the very most, if you knew all of those things about them that you just said that they don't know about you, would it change your love for them?
It doesn't.
So
and there are people that, like, you know them intimately, right? I'm sure you're like that with your wife. You know everything about her.
Yeah.
You know those dark things she thinks about herself. You know them.
Yep.
But it doesn't affect anything.
No.
Right. And that's such a great reminder of, like, man, the people that really love you, they don't care about your weaknesses. They don't care about these trivial things that you have a hard time with.
And I think the thing that's, I think sometimes, and this is something, I hope it makes sense because I'm going to slaughter it, just the thought, it just came to me, but I think sometimes when we think that there's all these things inside us that make us feel shame, that we would say, hey, if you knew this about me, you would think different. If you knew this about me, you wouldn't love me so much. Yeah. There's a part of us in that recognizing that then the love that they have is not real. And it's very easy to go through your entire life feeling like if there's stuff I'm hiding that people don't really know about me, and if they did, it would cost them the love that they have for me.
It's not unconditional.
It means that there is no love for you.
Right.
And we live our lives feeling like no one really knows me, and if they did, they wouldn't love me. But then when we flip that and we say, okay, Taylor, if you met someone like you who's gone through exactly what you've gone through, every single experience, who is afraid of lightning and thunder and dogs and why, and that person, and you've had the thoughts and you've had the struggles and you've had the things that you think you should feel shame for, which is probably nonsense, right? Because no one should. If you knew someone like that, how easy it would be to love them, right? You would still you would love them. And man, giving yourself permission to actually believe that and think that is a whole nother thing. It's easy to say, but it's not. Right. It's not easily achieved. And I tell my wife this. I think, and we, I think that if I could get her to, the most important thing that I could accomplish as a man is for her to know why I love her.
Yeah.
And I mean, if I knew her and loved her and she loved me for a minute, my whole life would have been worth it. I would ride off into the great beyond and the next adventure, whatever's next, or the grand. I would say, man, that was
It was all worth
it.
Yeah.
That was absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
And I want that for you. I want that for everyone. I mean, I really want that for everyone. And that's, I think, why I like sharing, I like talking about this stuff, because it's the thing. To know that she loves me says a lot about me.
Yeah.
Because, oh gosh. Because there's some days the only thing that I have is that, is that she loves me, and she's the greatest. She represents everything that's good in the whole universe to me. And she, of everyone, she's like, that guy. I'm going to take him. She knows something about me sometimes I don't know.
Right.
And that doesn't just have to be a husband and a wife. That could be a friend. That could be you and I.
Right.
It's like, I love you, and you should just, on those days, that, and we're strangers, we met today, but honestly, like sometimes just to have a friend that's be like, well, I can't believe it about myself, but man, if that person who I respect and love so much, if that guy loves me, then it says a lot about me. And sometimes that's maybe just going to have to be enough.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think, I'm sure you're the same way, but I usually, because I know all these things intellectually, right?
Yeah.
And I usually, like, I talk about a lot of sad stuff on the podcast, but I'm usually a pretty happy guy. I have a pretty cheery disposition, I think, but maybe there's some pain behind a thin veneer, right? That comes out at times. But there are certain nights where things just hit you, and you're just like last night for no reason, I was just sad, right? I was feeling lonely. I was feeling down on myself about a couple stupid things. And I remember like recognizing that feeling and recognizing that feeling is really an intrusive thought. It really has no business hanging around. Yeah. But it's there.
Sure.
It's made its way past the gates and the guards, and now it's here. And so now what am I going to do about it, right? And so I just remember thinking like, why did I just feel just this dysphoria? Like I want to just be happy, but it's just one of those nights. And I just had a friend call me, and like a friend that just wanted to like tell me some good news. They didn't even know what I was going through, and which is comparatively whatever I was going through very trivial. I was just having a night, right? But it felt a little emotionally catastrophic.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm with you.
But yeah, this friend called me. They were on the East Coast. It was like 2 a.m. their time, and they're like, dude, like if you have time to chat, I just want to tell you this thing I'm excited about. And we talked on the phone for like an hour, and I just felt immediately better and was like reminded that my little world is so small and that it's not always about me. And it reminded me that sadness, just like happiness, it's not a general state. It's just something that comes and goes.
Yeah, moves through.
And so just like I think it's a little bit foolish to pursue happiness. Yeah. Like with the same token, you have to realize that negative emotion also is fleeting. Yeah. You know, but we fixate so much on the negative emotion. It's hard to bask in your happiness, and it's easy to, you know, just be down in the dumps. And I wish it was different, but
yeah, I do too. And I think really that's kind of the, you know, an important distinction about sadness is when that sadness becomes a perpetual state of being, right? And you get into things like true depression and debilitating, you know, anxiety and things like that really like you can't, you know, you don't get to wish those things away, you know? Yeah. And it is important to know that like this is a ride, you know, and there's going to be drops and then there's going to be climbs, and but it's, I mean, I think that's good. It's good. And it's awesome that your friend called you, and
Yeah.
it's awesome that another person's joy brought you joy instead of the opposite.
Right.
It says a ton about you, because I think a lot of times, suffering, people who are suffering and then relish the suffering of others, and that somehow makes their suffering feel like it's less. That's not healthy. Yeah. But to know that you're the kind of person, and you just strike me as such an awesome, genuine guy. I mean, every time I watch your podcast, I'm just like listening so closely, because everything you say is very profound and thoughtful, and I wouldn't want. I mean, I look at my life, and I don't think I would want to replace any of the sorrow that I've had with joy in that moment.
Yeah.
I think whatever it did, it landed me here, and it taught me so many things, and there's so much more depth to my understanding, and also just, God, there's something about suffering and sorrow that connects us to other people, and I can see it in you, and I can see it in a stranger, and you can see it in a homeless guy, and you feel all the same things. You didn't experience the same things, but you feel all the same things. And I think that's just this grand connection between all of us, is that we know what sadness is. And
your ability to empathize, like, you can't put a price on that.
No.
Like, I'm sure, I don't know how often it happens, but I'm sure there are times where you meet parents that have kids with similar issues as your daughter, and I bet your heart just,
yeah. It's a community of people that you're like, you get it at a level that, again, everybody's had sadness and suffering and sorrow and tragedy, but like you specifically understand a little bit more of the details to mine. And it's like, I'll have patients that come into the emergency department, and somebody comes in and they're just in the throes of really bad anxiety. Yeah. And anxiety is one of those things that I've experienced, and until you experienced it, people don't understand what it is and what it means and what it feels like. Yeah. And
I don't even really understand it, because I lean way more, my negative emotion would lean more towards depression. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I just don't, anxiety isn't something I really deal with very much.
It's truly one of I have patients come in, and I can walk into a room, and sometimes I have to check myself. I'm like, all right, I'm the provider. I got to hold my stuff together, but there's times where I come in, and I can't fight the emotion of feeling what they're feeling, and reassuring them that, like, hey, I want you to know that I'm someone who understands. Yeah. And I don't try to dive into my own story with my patients, but at the same time, I want them to know that, like, hey, I know if you could escape this, you would. There's kind of a sense sometimes of people who don't understand it or haven't seen it in a loved one, and see how really hard it is. Well, what do you have to be anxious about? Well, trust me, I don't know. Right. Like if I could wish this away, blow it away, I would do it, know? Yeah. And it's at the top of the list of things that if I could cure it, I would. If I could snap my fingers and cure it, anxiety and depression would be at the top of the list, because it's anxiety and depression are those things that ruin, in an otherwise healthy person, ruin every beautiful moment. Yeah, yeah. And so it's nice to, coming from that place, though, I think just makes me a better provider when I'm in that position. And I think all of us need to look at our own life experiences and see how there's ways that we can, reach out to other people who might be experiencing it, and say, hey, I know you're going through something, and I know you're going through something. Yeah. I know, and I know. Right. Right.
Yeah. What made you, in the middle of a successful acting career, decide I need to go back to medical school and become a PA? And I'm sure there's multiple reasons, but that had to be a really tough, unique decision.
It was. There's a number of things. Medicine was always something that fascinated me ever since I was a little kid. Yeah. Used to carry a little first aid book around with me, and it was just something, oh, you hurt? Like, I'll be the one. Yeah. And I'll be honest, as I think about the mental health component of the origins of that, of medicine, I think it really comes down to, from a very young age, especially being artistic, and then just the normal kind of, trials and trauma of childhood and growing up and different situations and scenarios. And I had a really hard time when I was young, and this is kind of a roundabout way to answer your question, but I had a really hard time when I was young differentiating the difference or differentiating between, I had a really hard time when I was young differentiating between breaking something and not being able to fix something.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is anything, even things that I'm not responsible for. Mm-hmm. So if you were suffering, if you were hurt, not being able to help you felt like I was hurting you. Mm. And that's really hard to carry.
Yeah.
And it stayed with me my whole life.
Just an extreme empath.
Basically, yeah. Mm-hmm. To the point of pain. I mean, to the point of I'd have to really compartmentalize the world, because if I considered the suffering,
it's too much.
It's too much.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of people that live in that world, and it is too much.
Yeah.
And they make decisions they can't come back from. Now, I never got to there, thank goodness. But the reason I have to tell that story is because that was kind of just, you have to kind of know a little bit my nature before I can explain why, why healthcare, why.
Yeah.
And so I was living in LA. I was, Kent and I we had one baby, Wyatt was born, and I had wanted to go back to school. I enrolled in community college. I was like, I'm going to trickle through this schooling, and it was always going to be kind of this pre-medicine track, get an education, but it would have taken me forever. And it was really kind of fortuitous. At the time, felt catastrophic, but at the time, the writer's strike happened. This was 2007 or something like that. And all your shows went off. People stopped making movies. It was like, but for actors, I mean, it was devastating.
You know what's funny? I was in the middle of my LDS mission in 2007, so I don't remember.
Okay, well, so anyway, everybody else's favorite shows went off.
There's a weird 2-year block where
it's missing.
Who knows what
I have
happened.
one of those too. It was 99 to 01. And so when the writer's strike happened, I was, fairly newly married, new baby, and I went from making like a tenth of the money or something, like it was like I had no income.
Yeah.
My wife was working, but I was like, I am not. And I realized I have no education. I'm 28 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting on other people to make decisions that allow me to take care of my family. Right. And I realized I have to take that control back. Yeah. And so honestly, it was like an overnight decision. I was like, babe, we need to move back to Utah. I'm going to go to school full time, and I'm going to and so she's like, okay, she trusted me, and she was heartbroken because she knew how much film and art was like such a passion of mine. But I reassured her. I said, this isn't going away. I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to write. I'm going to direct. I'm going to do all these things. But I have to have a means to make sure that we're okay.
Yeah.
And she totally understood and jumped in the car, went to Southern Utah University, did my undergrad in just over 3 years. I did full-time paramedic school at Utah Tech. Mm-hmm. And so I was enrolled full-time at 2 universities for a bit. Yeah. And it was like I did a couple semesters of it was 32 credits, I think, a semester.
Wow.
It was just absurd. Yeah. It was like, that's a lot. Like, I can't even remember that. I don't think I slept, but I was working 911 as a medic, and I was doing pre-hospital surgery or pre-op surgery tech stuff. And then I was teaching paramedic school. And then I went up to Portland, Oregon, and went to PA school. Emergency medicine was always my passion. It was kind of like the one track that I wanted. I wanted to be like the first guy to get my hands on somebody when they were having their worst day, and I want to be like, I want to fix it, Right. And so that's what it was. And so I went and did all that, and I practiced. And then as I was practicing in Portland, I hadn't really been writing. I hadn't been acting. I took a pretty clean hiatus from everything, and I realized I wasn't fulfilled in just medicine. I realized I had to get back. Yeah. And so that's why we moved back to Utah, and I work now emergency medicine down in St. George, and now back doing more film and directing and writing. Yeah. And I feel much more balanced. Yeah, much more balanced. So I feel like there's this part of me that's satisfying that need to fix things that are broken in people. And I think that's why mental health has just resonated with me, is just partly because of my own journey of my wife, the journey of my children, the journey of everyone I know. Mm-hmm. And man, if I can put myself in a position to help people on their worst day, I want to do it. And then the other side, which is the filmmaking, storytelling side, is I don't think there's a greater way to build understanding than telling them a story.
Yeah. Well, it's the healer's art.
Absolutely. It's what we all fall back on when we need to heal.
Yeah. Do you do you get is it kind of a weird experience when I'm sure sometimes people come in and they're like, wait, how do I know you?
In the ER, definitely. And this will be kind of a, I don't know, some of your viewers may know, but I one of the characters I played historically was a less than honorable character in a religious educational experience,
right,
if you will.
Yeah. But very recognizable to those people.
Recognizable to those people. And so it was funny when actually that's first started showing in the presentation, and then I was working, emergency medicine, and I'd walk into a patient's room, and they'd be like, "Oh, yeah," they'd be like, "I don't want you," At first, maybe they don't recognize. At first, they're just like, "Oh, he looks familiar," and I don't know why I want to punch him in the face. And then they'd put it together, and they'd be like, "Wait, you played Evil of Evil, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but not today. Today I'm a good guy." And they're like, they're like, "I feel better now. Like I'm gonna go home. I'm good." Yeah. And so I remind them I'm like not there to collect them and take them, take them to Hades. But yeah, it's fun. And then some people, they recognize me from other films and things like that. And sometimes they can't. They're like, "Why? You're my provider in the ER."
Yeah, they're like, "Are you acting as a doctor?"
Yeah, and I'm like, "No, this is not." They're like, "Where's the camera?" I'm like, "No, this is real. Like this is real deal." So yeah, it's fun.
That's fun. What do you think? This feels like a trite question coming out of my mouth, but I think it's important. What do you think the importance is of just kindness? I'm sure it sounds like it's something you've really tried to instill and teach to your children. But I mean, how do you even get that across, how important kindness is? Because I feel like that is kind of the message of a lot of your, these short films you've made about mental health.
Yeah.
Like, to me, the overarching theme is kindness is kind of the best prevention.
Yeah.
Or the best tool to deal with, to cope, to mitigate.
Mm-hmm. Kindness is the thing we all have.
Mm-hmm.
It's free.
Yeah.
It's not a resource that like, this is really hard. It's hard to, it's not time. Mm-hmm. It's not money. It can be time, I guess. It can be money. Yeah. But kindness doesn't require those things.
It can be so simple.
It can be so simple. And, the short film, All That Matters, specifically is about kindness. It shows the story of this kid and what his day is like and how hard it is and what he's going through. And then it shows just the single solitary interventions of kindness and how that changed the trajectory of his life. It was life-saving for him. And the whole message of that story is that, kindness always matters, and sometimes it's all that matters.
Yeah.
And the truth is I think kindness is, and again, it's really important to like stress that kindness doesn't mean that we're passive. Mm-hmm. Kindness doesn't mean that we don't take a position on something that we're passionate about. Sometimes kindness means that we are protesting. Yeah. Sometimes kindness means we are outspoken. Mm-hmm. Sometimes kindness means that we have to say hard things and do hard things. Yeah. And sometimes kindness to one person or group of people will feel like antagonism and unkindness to others. But there's a big difference between attacking somebody with ad hominem and intention to cause them unnecessary harm and attacking an idea that's causing someone else unnecessary harm.
Yeah.
And so to me, I think kindness it's that thing we all have, and it's very, very easy. And if we made it our goal during the day to just generally be kind to people, sometimes it's the difference between people's moments, like, I mean, I want to say the person that called you on the phone when you were feeling really bad last night, that was kindness. I mean, granted that person was having a great thing, but why did why did they want to share it with you?
Yeah. Why did they think of me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they reached out, and that made the difference in that moment. So big moments and little moments, I think kindness is the thing that saves.
Yeah. And I think, it's funny. It's like when you're kind, it can save people, but it can save you.
Oh yeah.
Yes. I think people always wonder, a lot of my comments, people are just wondering, how to find hope in hopeless situations, how to find joy in desperation. And I'm like, these are cliche, but the easiest way to like not think about yourself is kindness and just spreading light and love. Yeah. And there's no secret formula for mental health, right? Because for everyone, it's different. Some people, like, they need medication. Yeah, some people need therapy. Some people need to be outside more and sleep more, and they need to get their life in order, right? But there's no person out there that spreading love and kindness will hurt their mental health journey. Yeah,
Yeah. No, kindness is not. And I think, so that just resonates with me so strong. Kindness is not, kindness doesn't hurt anyone. Yeah. And kindness is but kindness to ourselves is also like a really challenging thing to be kind to ourselves.
How do you check yourself when you're going through just a random bad day? How do you get out of it without spiraling?
Yeah, great question. And I can say, I've been in therapy. I've had in 2019, 2020, had a pretty rough spiral downward. Yeah. And there was a lot of, catalyzing factors to that. Therapy was a huge help to me. And I fall back on that quite a bit. And allowing, one thing I think that's really, really hard for people to do is to allow the kindness of other people. We tend to shut it down sometimes. We often, forget that the kindest thing we could do sometimes is let other people be kind to us. Yeah. It's our default mode is often no. For sure.
And I'm sure you experienced that
because we perceive it as unkindness sometimes to burden someone with something added upon, right?
I'm sure you experience it a lot and I'm sure you have to figure this out, but being in the public eye, so many people, the first time they meet you, they just want to compliment you because they don't know what else to say.
Sure, and I'll take it.
Yeah. But they don't know anything else about you but what they've seen on screen.
Sure.
And so they want to throw compliments at you and be like, oh, I loved you in this and this and this. And you've got to probably figure out a way to metabolize that.
Yeah, sure.
Without it either going to your head or you just pushing everything off.
I'm definitely a push everything off. Yeah. Was always and that in a lot of ways hurt me. I think there's a difference between, sometimes I perceived people's affection and affinity for me and the esteem they maybe had for me because of the things that I did and not because of who I am. And they loved an idea of me, but just like we were saying, the reality of me was something that probably they wouldn't necessarily love. And so it is hard, to check those feelings. And you asked me if I, as I get kind of in like a low place, for me, I really do open up to my best friend. I open up to my wife, and sometimes I need her to pull me back and remind me who I am and remind me of, and kind of be the other voice, the stronger, louder voice from the voice that sometimes sits in my head and talks me down. Yeah. So I think that's one of the things. And then, I think, again, and then acknowledging that you need help, I think that's like, we've got to empower people to just acknowledge that we're not, I tell every patient that comes, I said, there isn't a person in this hospital that doesn't need help. Yeah. We just all we need each other, and we are the help. Yeah. We need help and we are the help. Yeah. And And I think the sooner we can get to a place, I wish the whole world could get to a place where we knew that.
What's your advice for, I feel like there's a lot of people out there, I'm so blessed. This isn't an area I struggle with, but I think there's so many people out there that just feel like they don't have anyone to talk to when they're going through something like that. They don't have a best friend. They don't have a spouse. They don't have that closeness with family. And so they just feel like they're just stuck in their own echo chamber.
What's my advice for someone like that? I can't advocate enough for therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I can't advocate enough for intention when it comes to your mental health.
Yeah.
Like, it cannot be a passive thing.
You almost have to seek it aggressively.
It's intentional.
Yeah.
It's intentional. I want to feel, I post this before, but mental health is less fate and more fight.
Yeah.
In that we can resign ourselves to just feeling, in your question, feeling like I have no one, there is nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm resigned to this existence that I'm always going to have. I'm going to always have depression. I'm going to always have anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to always feel this way, and there isn't a way out.
Yeah.
And this is my fate. This is how my life is going to go. And we can't resign ourselves to that idea.
Yeah.
It's a false idea. It's a lie. The truth is that mental health is not a destination. It's a fight. It's a fight every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be intentional about fighting.
Yeah.
And part of that is you have to be like, I'm going to therapy. I'm actually going to therapy, because the acknowledgement, when you have a scheduled therapy appointment,
Mm-hmm.
the acknowledgement is that there's something to talk about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The acknowledgement is that I need it
Mm-hmm.
because I'm going.
Yeah.
And suddenly you start to open up, and suddenly start to realize, even in that moment where you feel like you don't maybe have anybody to talk to,
Mm-hmm.
the cool thing about therapy is therapy reminds you that you're not the only one talking.
Yeah.
So you might not be able to talk to anyone or feel like you have that close relationship or friend or spouse or whoever, confidant that you're sharing with,
Mm-hmm.
but a therapist themselves can just remind you how normal you really are, and how you're that therapist has multiple appointments that day of people talking about a lot of the same things.
Right.
And so even just that sense that I'm not isolated in this,
Mm-hmm.
and that there's a place for me that's joyful and happy, and I'm going to feel these moments. Yeah, I'm going to still experience my bad nights and feel really sad, and I'm going to get depressed, and I'm going to feel anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And but man, that reminder of not being alone, not truly alone is important. And then also, people, I think it's important for all of us to be really attentive to, it only happens when we all do it together, but if we're attentive to the people in our lives that are the closest to us, and doing what we can to just send them a text and to call, I know that sounds very like cliche,
Yeah.
But truly just saying, hey, I'm here, and not just like when you need me, I'm reaching out to you. I'm saying, hey, like, I can carry it. Like, let's just dump it on me. Dump it on me, and let me hug you. I'll just sit here and listen, and let me just hug you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, it takes a certain amount of depth in those relationships to feel like you can really get there. And I think that I'm only now in my mid 40s, like I said, getting to a place where I'm recognizing that, I want my circle of association to be, it can be small, that's fine. I just want the people inside to be the people that I know I can say anything to in my deepest, darkest moments, and they love the reality of me and not just some idea of me.
Yeah. I also love this idea. I think some people think like, I'm so alone, I don't have any friends, so how do I get out of this? But I think you might not have any people that are actively currently your friends, but you can be a friend to anyone.
Yeah, totally.
And so I think you can make friendships way easier than you think by just being a friend to somebody, being kind to somebody.
Yeah.
And you'll realize that, people are going through very similar things, and people also feel really alone. And so I think, people out there that just feel like, man, I'm not good at making friends. I'm not good at socializing and putting myself out there.
That's so hard.
It's so hard. And I'm lucky. I'm extroverted.
Same.
I've been, I don't even know why or how I've been so lucky, but I have so many rich friendships and people in my life, and it just feels like a kiss from fate,
Yeah,
but some people don't have that.
They don't.
But I do think you can go and be a friend to anybody, and it might not be immediately reciprocated. It might not turn into a lifelong friendship, but I think that's the easiest way to get friends, is to just be a friend to somebody who needs it,
Totally agree.
What do you think you learned the most about yourself from therapy? That maybe you're like, wow, this is quite the revelation.
I would say for me is that, well, there's two things, and it's very, very, very clear. This isn't like a hard question to answer for me. Thank goodness. In the most humble way I can say it, I'm special.
Yeah.
I feel like I learned that that my existence is celebrated by this universe.
Yeah.
And that what I feel for people that I love is real love, and what I feel from them is real love, and that I'm worthy of it. Not because I'm special in comparison, right, but just special in that I'm a being. I exist. I exist, and I'm not perfect. But all the negative I've put out into the universe, I can say, hey, I'm sorry. I'm just learning, and I'm trying to do better, and I'm trying to be better. But therapy it gave me a little bit of a glimpse into seeing me through the eyes of the world, instead of trying to self-perceive me in my own mind. And I felt through therapy that I was someone that I could love. And when I learned that I was someone I could love, I mean, that was like, suddenly I feel worthy I feel worthy of the love of other people when I'm lovable, when I feel lovable, when I feel worthy. And that just, to me, just was like.
Yeah. Did you feel kind of sad realizing like, dang, dude, it took me this long to figure this out?
Oh yeah. And I'll tell you, it made me sad that it took me that long to realize it. But I think the thing that just set this fire inside me and this sense of urgency was that it hurts me to know that there are people that are still not knowing that about themselves.
Yeah. And people you love.
People I love.
Yeah.
And I wish I could magically make them know, how much I love them, or how worthy they are of love, or how much they deserve, everything that they hope for or want. I feel that, and I'm allowing myself to kind of not detach from that reality, because it motivates me to be kind and to be a friend and you're right. I loved what you said about like, you could just be a friend every day to everyone, because nobody says that friendship has to last your whole life.
Right.
Friendship can be that person at the gas station that you smile to and compliment, and that friendship lasted 30 seconds.
Right.
But it was friendship.
Yeah, a little micro friendship.
And there's value to that. And maybe you didn't get to open up your whole life story to them, and they didn't get to share with you. But it's almost, in a lot of ways, it's just as meaningful, because it didn't require you to know them to love them.
Yeah, you're just sharing light.
Which is, I mean, man, you love them despite not knowing them. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I really loved what you said earlier. You were talking about your kids, and you said each one of them is just perfect. And it made me think, there was this girl I dated for a little bit, and I wish it was for a lot of bit, but it was just for a little bit. But
That's all right.
she would always say that about people. She'd see somebody doing something that she thought was cute or endearing, and she'd go, "They're perfect." And I just loved it. I loved it because to me, she wasn't saying that person's without flaw.
Yeah, no.
She was saying this person, what they're doing is perfect. They're so human right now. They're so relatable. They're so lovable. And that's perfect. And it meant the world to me when she said that.
Yeah.
And it was often just this, we'd be together, and like our waiter would come and they'd say something funny, and they'd kind of be shy or bashful, and they'd walk away, and she'd go, "Oh, she's perfect." And
oh, I love her.
and
yeah,
that's
awesome.
and I did too, but or at least tried my best. But I loved her paradigm.
Yeah.
It was, she saw the simple beauty in people and in everybody. It wasn't just her people, her family and her friends. It was in strangers. It was in
moments.
These micro friendships. She made them really easily.
Yeah.
And it was such an admirable quality.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I love when people describe other people as perfect.
And that's because I mean, man, it's true.
Yeah.
You're perfect.
Thanks, brother.
I'm serious.
Thank you, man. This has been a really, really cathartic episode.
Me too. Yeah. It's been.
I wanted to ask, just to wrap things up, I like to kind of turn the tables and ask, if you were the host, if you had any questions for me, even though you don't know me very well.
Yeah. I would say, I don't know you very well.
Yeah.
But I want you to know that I'm a safe place. I'd want you to know that.
Yeah.
And I'd want you to know that, like, I hope to keep tabs, and I'd love to be your friend.
Yeah.
Sincerely. And then I would say this. I would say, and I've heard your podcast. I know you talk a lot about finding love yourself, and how you've navigated not found that lasting thing. Where do you feel? How do you feel? Do you feel optimism?
That depends on the day, I think if I'm in a good headspace and you ask me, I say, yeah. Like, I think the challenge is maintaining that optimism. I think there are days where, and I haven't done any therapy, but I think there are days where I am like, you know what? I am really special. I am a beautiful soul. I have so much to give. I have so much love to give. Like, I think anyone would be lucky to be with me. And then there are days where I'm like, well, if that's true, why am I still alone? It's like I'm playing devil's advocate with myself. And it's like I'm looking at it like a scientist. I'm like, well, the evidence is pretty clear, but I would say 72% of the time I'm pretty optimistic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think where the challenge lies is in feeling that every day or most days, and not going to the dark places where I feel the opposite of that. But I think surrounding myself with the people I have has made it infinitely easier.
Yeah.
I think it's just the moments where I think I feel overwhelmed at times by just the void of the love that I want, devoid of a family, and it's not even, it's never a hopelessness of feeling like it'll never come or I know it won't come. It's more just like, can I handle this void until the void is filled?
Yeah.
You know? And but I'll tell you what, I've had, glimpses of it and bits of it where I'm like, I'll wait 1,000 years if I have to have this kind of love, right? Because I think you can make it work with freaking anyone, right? Maybe not anyone, but there's a lot of people you could have a decent life with, but I'm not really interested in a decent life.
No, man.
And so yeah, I actually have a lot of hope, and I've had some really meaningful spiritual experiences where I've felt like, you know what, I've gone through all this for a reason, and yeah, there's gonna come a day where I'm like, oh, like, who cares that I was single for 1,000,000 years or what felt like 1,000,000 years,
Yeah.
Because I found my person now.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's a daily battle, and maybe it's more, not 70% of my days, but it's more hour to hour. How do I feel right now versus let's talk in a couple hours. Maybe something has triggered me and I feel bad, but my last breakup that was really tough, I remember thinking, you know what? Having these two different thoughts of thinking, I don't think I can go through that again. That was brutal.
Yeah.
And I, partially because I thought it was so great, and then it slipped away. So I'm like, I don't know if I can handle that again. But then realizing it was so good that I'll go through that 10 more times if I need to.
Yeah.
Which is a harrowing thought. But I think I can, and I think I have the constitution for it that I don't think everybody has. I think I can endure however much I need to. And if I'm a little sad in between, so what?
Yeah. Well, that's a good answer. I think I just want, I just get from you, you're kind of a transcendent type person. And I think that, like I've said before, with my, it's hard for me. And I just want you to know that I had a lot of apprehension about talking about my relationship with my wife, because I know I've heard so much of what you've said about what your hopes are. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to sit in a position where I'm like, I know exactly what you want. Mm-hmm. And I just would hope that you understand how awesome you are.
Thanks,
and
man.
that I hope that you're optimistic, because you should be, and that if it literally was a moment of your life that you get to find that it's worth it. And man, don't be any different than you are, man. I know that sounds very, I don't mean it to be what's the word? I don't mean it to sound, I don't know what the word is, but I just you're just an awesome dude, man.
Thanks, man.
You're a really, really good guy. And I'd be lying and I don't mean this to launch into the superficial, but I'd be lying if I haven't been sitting here for the last hour racking my brain about what beautiful young woman I know that I could set you up with.
Let's go.
All
right.
I'm like, this guy is just, in my brain, I'm like, it's got to be a relative. Like, I got to be related to this guy.
Keep this in the family.
I got to be related to this guy. So, no, you're an awesome dude, and I really appreciate you having me on, and for the content you do. I think it's so meaningful. And
thanks, man. Yeah. Is there Any projects you're excited about right now that you're working on, things that people can look forward to?
Yeah, I would love if people like Christmas, like I do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Christmas nerd.
Yeah.
I am doing a play this Christmas down in St. George.
Oh, cool.
I'm doing A Christmas Carol again. Mm-hmm. It's actually the third year. It's an all original. Well, the story's of Dickens, but it's an adaptation with all original music down this Christmas. So it's at the Electric Theater.
Are you singing?
Encore Performing. Yeah, I am singing.
Nice.
Encore Performing Arts does it. I think it's encorepa.org. I think it's a nonprofit. So please feel free to donate or come down there. But I'm writing a screenplay right now with some good friends called Graduation Therapy, which actually dives into a lot of this mental health story of my life and Charan Prabhakar. Do you know Charan? He was the one with kind of the original idea for this kind of story and Shona, and so there's a handful of us that are working on this project and eventually hope to get that funded and made. And it really is kind of all the things we've talked about kind of bundled up into a cinematic experience that I think is going to be really awesome. So I'm proud of that screenplay and yeah. So there's a bunch more. I've got a couple films coming out this year and,
cool.
and hopefully have
cool,
a few more next year.
Because we haven't seen a ton from you for a bit.
Well, I took a long break, and now I'm doing a lot more directing and writing, but I've got Alien Country comes out next month. That's a feature that's coming out in theaters next month, and then I did another rom-com this year, and yeah, so there'll be some more coming.
Nice.
So.
Do you envision yourself artistically getting more into writing and directing, or acting just as much, or do you just feel like you'll go with what feels good?
I'll go with what feels good.
Yeah.
I think it's inevitable as a storyteller that a lot of times you're going to dive into all the components of the storytelling, but writing and directing is really speaking a lot to me right now because I feel like I have stories that I want told, and I think I know how I want them told.
Yeah.
But I'm also totally willing to jump into other people's stories and tell them in the way they want to.
Yeah.
And so, whether I'm in front of the camera or behind the camera, I'm in heaven.
Yeah.
Telling stories and, moving people and hopefully, motivating them for positive change. So
awesome. Well, Corbin, I appreciate you, my guy. Love you too, bro.